glad you can join us. Here's what's happening this Tuesday inside the alleged plot to form an anti-government militia.
Ideologically motivated violent extremism.
What led RCMP to lay charges against some Canadian Armed Forces members?
It shines a light on how Amazon does its business.
Why Amazon is under fire for its pricing policy in Canada.
This weird stadium in the middle of nowhere.
Plus, a cold play-by-play of criticism for a new stadium.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
A shocking conspiracy uncovered by the RCMP. Some active members of the Canadian Armed Forces are accused of trying to start an anti-government militia motivated by violent extremism. 4 people were arrested today, some facing charges of facilitating terrorist activity. CTV senior political correspondent Mike Couture is with us now. And Mike, who are these men and exactly what were they planning?
Yeah, well, Sandy, we know that 2 of the accused are active members of the Canadian Armed Forces. Police allege 3 of the 4 have been planning to create that militia. And according to the charges, the plan was to forcibly take possession of land in the Quebec City area. With 83 guns and accessories, about 11,000 rounds of ammunition, and smoke grenades, police believe the group was ready to do something serious. A search in January of 2024 also turned up 4 pairs of night vision goggles and military equipment.
The fact that we could charge with facilitating a terrorist activity, that it means that people were actually preparing, were taking actions that led us to believe that they wanted to actually achieve something and wanted to commit this violent terrorist acts.
The RCMP has charged 4 people, and the Department of National Defence confirms 2 of them are active members of the Canadian Armed Forces. Matthew Forbes faces charges related to possession of firearms. Marc-Auriel Chabot, Simon Anger Odette, and Raphaël Lagacé are all facing charges related to facilitating terrorist activity. The terrorism charges span a period between 2021 and 2024 in Montreal, Quebec City, Petawawa, and Ralston, Ontario. Lagacé's friend of 12 years is shocked at the accusation that he would be trying to create an anti-government militia. It's quite the contrary, actually. He's very pro-government, very pro-monarchy, says the friend. Police say one of the accused created and ran this Instagram account, which was a recruiting tool for new members of the militia.
As soon as they start talking about seizing land, this goes to me to, I think about some of the militias operating in the United States that set up strongholds, areas where the federal government can't go, and try to really keep out law enforcement.
Now, the 4 accused made a brief court appearance this afternoon in Quebec City, and all of them will remain in custody until their next court date on July 14th. Sandy?
All right, Mike, thank you for this. Well, should we be surprised about the terror plot and subsequent arrests? Is this part of an extremism trend within the Canadian military? We asked CTV's Heather Wright to look into this, and Heather, what did you learn?
Well, Sandy, some of the experts I spoke with today said that while the allegations are shocking, they were not surprised to hear of these charges, perhaps only surprised that it took so long for a case like this to emerge.
There has been a rise of ideological violent extremism right around the world. The plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer and the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol are among the examples. But studies in Canada suggest extremism is lurking in the Canadian military as well.
I suspect it's not a lot different from the representation in the broader population, but it poses significant problems when it's in the military.
Police say the accused were using social media to actively recruit fellow soldiers, part of aggressive tactics often used by these types of groups, says Barbara Perry, director of the Center on Hate, Bias and Extremism. She says they often exploit the fear and anxiety of both active members and veterans no longer serving.
They're looking for a place to belong now, right? They've had that structure that has been comfortable for them. And, groups that are savvy will recreate themselves in a way that is appealing, that does have that discipline, that does have a ranked system.
In 2022, an advisory panel delivered a scathing report to the Ministry of Defense, warning hate crimes, extremist behaviors, and affiliations to white supremacy groups are growing at an alarming rate in both Canada and its defense team. It's an issue the military needs to address from the bottom up, says this former Canadian Major General.
What more do we have to do that we haven't been doing for the last couple of years on behavioral, cultural changes? And what more can we do to ensure that we protect systems like weapon systems and everything else?
This latest incident comes just days after military police launched an investigation into a racist and misogynistic Facebook group, underlining the challenges the armed forces has in dealing with extreme views. Sandy.
CTV's Heather Wright. Thank you, Heather. A tragic mid-air collision southeast of Winnipeg this morning has left 2 people dead.
The 2 pilots were pronounced deceased on scene. There were no passengers aboard.
Emergency crews found the wreckage of the 2 small aircraft near a landing strip south of Steinbach. The owner of a Manitoba flight school says they were student pilots trying to land their planes at the same time.
The company's 50 years old. It hasn't happened. Devastated. It's really... It's very personal.
Canada's Transportation Safety Board is investigating the collision. Well, families in Texas are getting the devastating news that their loved ones didn't survive the floods and are among the more than 100 now confirmed dead. We're hearing stories of heroism, but also the challenging circumstances in which rescuers are working. CTV's Adrian Gabriel now with the treacherous rescue conditions and the testy exchanges over accountability.
Sandy, questions are being asked about the level of coordination between the National Weather Service and local officials on the night of the disaster. Following federal cutbacks, a number of NWS jobs have remained vacant in Central Texas, including the role of manager responsible for issuing warnings and coordinating with local emergency authorities. This new information comes with rescue efforts now in their 5th day.
There's people in it. Oh my God, there's so many people in it.
This video from Camp La Junta shows a cabin ripped from its foundation, floating down the Guadalupe River. Attending the camp, brothers Braden and Brock Davis, who credit their counselors with saving their lives.
Our bed started tipping over, and like we got to the top really quick.
I want my world to know the Lord of love has come to me.
As campers sing a hymn, a passenger on board this evacuation bus realizes the level of devastation.
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
These young girls were rescued from Camp Mystic, where more than 24 have been confirmed dead. The National Weather Service issued their first public warning at 1:14 a.m. on the 4th of July. The Kerr County Sheriff admitting that he wasn't aware of the fast approaching surge until at least 3 hours later.
When I was first notified, it was around the 4 to 5 area. One of my sergeants was in dispatch when the first calls started coming in, the actual 911 calls come in.
Though officials today declined to answer whether a local emergency manager notified authorities of the incoming flash flood.
We will get answers. Right now, all of our resources are focused to recovery.
With the chance of any further rescues fading with each passing hour, hope in Central Texas is turning to heartache over the precious lives swept away. During a cabinet meeting today, President Donald Trump praised the quick deployment of state and federal rescue crews, saying that without them, the number of dead could have doubled or even tripled. Trump confirming that he will be traveling to survey the natural disaster zone in Texas this Friday. Sandy.
Adrian, thank you. The American leader had some choice words today for Russia's Vladimir Putin over Ukraine.
That was a war that should have never happened, and a lot of people are dying, and it should end. And I don't know, we get a lot of thrown at us by Putin for you want to know the truth.
Trump says he's unhappy with the growing death toll and is now promising to send defensive weapons to Ukraine, which were halted last week. Donald Trump is also ratcheting up the tariff war, floating the idea of a 200% tax on pharmaceuticals. And there's another measure that could be an economic blow to Canada. Trump today announced a significant tariff on imported copper.
Today we're doing copper.
Copper, what would that tariff be on? The sectional tariff?
I believe the tariff on copper, we're going to make it 50%.
According to the most recent stats, the U.S. accounts for approximately 52% of Canada's copper exports, valued at $9.3 billion. Trump did not say when the new tariff would take effect. And while we keep our eyes on Washington, in Ottawa, it appears the Prime Minister is looking to make deep cuts to federal spending. It's part of Mark Carney's bid to shell out less on government operations to help pay for new priorities. CTV's Rachel Aiello now on the possible changes and what it means for job security in the company town. Hi, Rachel.
Sandy, Cabinet has been directed to embark on a massive cost-cutting mission ahead of Prime Minister Mark Carney's first federal budget. And this new edict to find billions in long-term savings to help cover the cost of new spending has public service unions very worried. All federal ministers are being asked to find places to trim within their departments and agencies and present their plans to cut billions by the end of August. In an effort to keep the deficit in check, Prime Minister Mark Carney's inner circle has been told to come up with 7.5% in savings for the 2026-27 fiscal year, a 10% spending reduction the year after, and 15% savings by 2028. Today, unions that represent hundreds of thousands of public servants were briefed by the government on what the spending review means for jobs.
I'm very concerned by this announcement. The Prime Minister promised caps and not cuts, and it definitely feels like the public service workers are going to be bearing the brunt of this.
As for whether federal programs could also be slashed,
Nice to meet you.
Yesterday, the defense minister said he wasn't aware of any plans to fund Carney's massive new NATO spending commitment through cuts to services. Another union we spoke to today called the government's expenditure review arbitrary austerity measures. We reached out to the Treasury Board president for an interview. He was not available. Sandy?
All right, Rachel, thank you. Amazon is facing increasing scrutiny as Canada's Competition Bureau gets the green light to advance its investigation of the e-commerce giant. It's happening as Amazon rolls out its Prime Days in Canada. CTV's Judy Trin has been looking at how this could affect the online retailer. Judy.
Sandy, Amazon currently controls 40% of the online market. It's a retail giant that dominates e-commerce. The Competition Bureau is mainly concerned with the company's fair price policy, which it introduced in 2017, and whether or not Amazon is using that policy to abuse its dominant position. The Competition Bureau has obtained a court order to compel the e-commerce giant to hand over records and information so it can investigate 3 questions. 1, does Amazon charge higher fees to sellers, forcing them to pass on the cost to customers? Secondly, does it prevent sellers from offering lower prices on competing sites? And third, does its actions lessen competition overall in the online marketplace?
Those documents will give the Competition Bureau visibility into how Amazon operates and if there are any incriminating conversations or incriminating exchanges within its teams or between its teams and its stakeholders on limiting competition, driving prices up, all of the things that the Bureau wants to investigate.
Although the Competition Bureau is investigating, at this point, there is no alleged wrongdoing. As for Amazon, in a statement, the company says it's focused on getting customers the products they want at low prices. Sandy.
Judy Trin in Ottawa. Thank you, Judy. Coming up after the break, some cold criticism.
Thank you so much for coming through all the bull you have to come through to this weird stadium.
Banding together to take digs at a new concert venue. A warm reception in Toronto for superband Coldplay last night, performing the first of 4 mega concerts at a new venue some describe as being in the boonies. Frontman Chris Martin even went so far as to call it weird. CTV's Rahim Ladani now on the shout out to fans who braved the slog to the remote stadium.
Sandy, night one of Coldplay was a musical success, but like this confetti from the concert, which is still littered around the neighborhood, area residents want the concert chaos cleaned up. It was a night filled with flashing lights, balloons floating in the air, and capped off with spectacular fireworks. But even Coldplay couldn't resist poking fun at the issues plaguing Toronto's new Rogers Stadium.
Thank you so much for coming through all the bull you have to come through to this weird stadium in the middle of nowhere.
For fans, exiting the 50,000-seat open-air venue was much smoother compared to last week's inaugural concert, where there were reports of people fainting and waiting hours to get out. This time, people say there was better signage and more staff holding up red lights, controlling traffic, directing them to transit areas. But while concert goers had a better experience, those living across from the venue say it was chaotic.
The windows were shaking. Window glass was shaking. That's bad.
Others say they were threatened by trespassers.
People walking through our property, not really caring what was going on. They told us that we're here at the concert, we paid for it, and lump it sort of thing.
Area Councillor James Pasternak admits the summer concert venue is off to a rough start and says he was only brought into a working group 8 months after planning was already underway.
You had a private landowner and you had a private concert promotion company who wanted to get this done. And then you had support among the political elites who wanted to see this as a boost for tourism, as a boost for the cultural music industry, and they got it done very fast, surprisingly fast. But things should have been thought out.
While several road closures are in place and paid duty officers have been brought in, neighboring residents feel their concerns are being pushed aside for profit.
The city is not listening to us. This is our community, and all of a sudden we have this big situation going here, and I don't see the end to it.
Coldplay will perform 3 more concerts this week, including one tonight. After that, 9 more concerts are slated to be played at this stadium this summer. Sandy.
Rahim, thanks. CTV's Rahim Ladani in Toronto. And the city of Calgary has received more than a dozen noise complaints about a Stampede venue.
I don't mind festivals being here. What I mind is it being that loud all the way till 2 a.m.
This tent housing the Cowboys Music Festival has to be completely silent by 2 a.m. But residents say that's too late. Festival organizers have yet to comment. Still ahead, on the hook for plastic pollution. The environmental push to stop the expansion of fish farms.
They're not outside of our reach.
A group of experts created a roadmap of dozens of recommendations to save the endangered orcas who inhabit the waters from California to Alaska, of course, including the BC coast. Protecting their main food source, Chinook salmon, was identified as a top priority. The population has declined to 73 with no sign of recovery. After the break, unearthing an ancient armored creature, what this Canadian fish fossil is telling us about the past. A glimpse into the distant past now that involves the unearthing of the remains of an ancient fish. It was discovered on the banks of Lake Manitoba, and what has researchers excited is how much the fossil sheds light on evolution. We sent CTV's Alex Carpa out to reel in the elements.
Right here, we have what we call the skull root.
This is the skull of a newly discovered fish that swam in Manitoba waters millions of years ago.
This right here is the articulation from the back of the head.
This ancient and armored fish is a type of placoderm. Before having bony skeletons like we as humans have today, these fish had bodies made of cartilage.
This big dermal head, so a big shield, head shield and shoulder shield, that was made of dermal bone. So bone started with as big armors.
This is the first discovery of this type of species in Manitoba made by Dr. Jobbins and her team along the east side of Lake Manitoba. She says these fossils provide new information on the early years of evolution.
They were also some of the first groups to actually evolve jaws. So we get to learn so much about them, about how we got teeth, how we got jaws, and so on.
This is what the placoderm fish looked like when it was swimming in Manitoba waters some 390 million years ago. Now, fossils of one of our oldest ancestors can be seen on display here at the University of Manitoba. Manitoba is well known for its fossil record. Dr. Kirsten Brink says Manitoba has some of the best preserved and exposed rocks around the world, which allows for these discoveries to happen.
A lot of the fossils we find in the province are actually due to mining. So mines that are actually scraping away all the rock to collect it, they'll uncover fossils kind of by accident.
Only this piece,
As for Jobbins, this discovery is one for the record books.
I have a lot of pride and happiness to see this coming out and being able to show that to people.
Jobbins now has no doubt more of these fossils will be unearthed in due time. Alex Carpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Your local CTV News is coming up. You can watch Omar later tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow, we hope. Bye for now.